Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Eagles Nest Podcast, your go-to spot for real estate, community, and everything happening across Southeast Wisconsin and Northern Illinois. I'm Vince Devall with the Eagle Homes team and Caldwell Banker Realty.
And of course, I'm Brad Brewer, and today we're taking last week's conversation. It was all about building that backyard oasis, and we're leveling it up because apparently the backyard oasis has evolved into even something bigger.
Yeah, Brad, that's kind of it. I see it a lot out there when I'm showing buyers, homes. We're talking about the rise of the half homesteader, the families who aren't going full Little House on the Prairie on us, but they're turning their yards into mini farms, chicken coops, raised gardens, fruit trees, composting. The full 9 yards.
Yeah, does not sound attractive to me at all, but to each their own. And yes, I've heard it. I've had buyers talk about it. Anything from just having chickens to multiple garden boxes, almost full on. I think if they got enough acreage, cornfields. But honestly, it is becoming a big lifestyle trend.
Yeah,
and we're gonna see how southeastern Wisconsin trends are affecting things here in real estate.
Yeah. But before we jump into that, obviously a lot of you in the Burlington area or have come through Burlington have seen, the destruction / construction of our roadways around the loop. So before we jump into homesteading, I want to hit something important. A lot of our local businesses, especially in our, out our front door here, are dealing with construction detours and slower foot traffic. So,
there are 5 ways to help support these businesses right now that are going through a little bit of slow foot traffic, which unfortunately does tend to slow business down just a little bit. One.
Yeah, leave a review. If you got a local business, go to their Google, Facebook, Yelp site. It takes 30 seconds, single 5-star review. Can literally move a business up in the search results. So, great, free, easy way to do it.
Second option would be share their posts. I will say this. Many of those businesses are doing a lot of extra posting. They're giving constant updates on how to access their stores. So for one, check out their posts, but then also share their posts so the people that don't see their pages know how to access these businesses.
Yeah.
And it might remind someone like, wow, I'm awful hungry for a hamburger today. So how the heck do I get to main event?
Right. And, and recommend them in local groups on Facebook, Instagram, and things like that. Burlington, Wisconsin community groups, Lions, Neighbors, Salem Lakes Talk, things like that. Your recommendation is going to carry a lot of weight.
Yeah. Volunteer or offer your skills, events, fundraisers, farmers markets. They all need hands. If you're good at photography, writing, organizing, please offer to these businesses. I think a lot of them will say, yes, please.
Yeah. And then finally, show up to events, farmers markets, wine walks, school events. Your presence matters and keeps the community strong.
Yeah. And honestly, on showing up, also, I'm a big fan of this. I know you are. I try to do a lot of, if I'm going to go out and spend some money, do it at these local businesses. Any community that I'm in, I try to support local and go to small businesses because they are the lifeblood. So
so talk about spending money. What are ways you can do that if you're going to spend some money?
Yeah. Well, one would be buy a gift card. Even a $10 or $20 gift card helps with cash flow, especially get through this time. Then when their regular business picks up and they're cashing out these cards later, it'd be a tremendous help.
Yeah. Another one is grab a small treat or an add-on. You stop by these little local shops, maybe you're grabbing a coffee, a pastry, a candle, a little knick-knack, whatever it might be. Small purchases can help keep the doors open during, this slowdown.
Again, small businesses, if you've got local services, use them instead of the chains. The chains are going to get the business. They're always going to get the business. We got to help support local. Haircuts, oil changes, dog grooming, lawn care. Choose local money in your community, please.
Yeah. All right, now let's jump into today's main topic. Because this one is fun and it ties perfectly into last week's Backyard Oasis conversation.
All right. The rise of the half homesteader. Wow. So Vince, tell me.
Everyone's like, what the hell is a half homesteader? Basically it's a family that wants the things like we talked about at the beginning. A few chickens, a big garden, maybe a greenhouse, right? Can they put up an extra outbuilding to make a greenhouse? Compost setup, some fruit trees. A little more self-sufficiency versus having to run to the store to get a dozen eggs, right? And we see it In southeast Wisconsin, we see it all the time. We see little stands set up on the side of the road. It
Yeah.
says eggs, $5 a dozen, or breads and baked goods, or jams, or honey, right?
I'll be honest, Vince. Every time I hear compost stuff, it just sounds shitty to me. Sorry, that might have been a dad joke. I don't even know.
But I will tell you, I sold a house just recently in Quantico, right? Friends of ours, they had a house in Quantico. They wanted to, they listed it. We got it on the market. But it was, they had fruit trees. They had, I think it's, yeah. So, but their home in general was all about, they had 12 or 14 fruit trees. They had composting, chicken coop. It was a little bit of everything for them. So it kind of goes into where we're at today. So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited for what you're actually getting ready to say, but that's okay. No, these are things that are exactly that want to stay on target. They still want the Wi-Fi. They still want the DoorDash conveniences, Culver's, being close to some of the other conveniences, but fresh eggs in your cupboard and tomatoes that don't taste like cardboard that you grew yourself.
Yeah.
All right. That's appealing to something.
Yeah. And Southeast Wisconsin is perfect for this. We've got large lots, a lot of flexible zoning in many of our towns.
We do.
And culture of outdoor living and people who genuinely enjoy hands-on projects.
Again, I would not be one of those.
Nope.
Although I'm getting ready to take on a project this weekend. I might talk about it next week.
Okay, all right.
So it'll be kind of interesting.
We'll see how that goes.
It's not something I've done in a while. So I'm gonna be building a pavered patio for we'll say a friend.
All right.
So
good luck with that.
Anyway.
Manual labor. Sorry.
It should be a good time. Anyway, so why is this trend exploding? One, grocery prices are up. Eggs, meat, produce. Oh my gosh, the meat thing. Every time I want to go get a steak or something, I just want to cry. And I can't tell you how many times lately, just on different types of meats and stuff like that, I literally walk away. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like that's just too much. But those are things that, maybe not the produce because that requires some animals, chickens, maybe having some cows, stuff like that, obviously. But there are other things that you can grow that help eliminate that grocery bill or trim that grocery bill down, right?
Yeah, and we have box gardens in our house, and we love it because the kids go out, pick fresh vegetables, eat them right out of the garden. But with that, that being said, the other option of that, right, is if you can afford it, share a cow with somebody.
Yeah,
get a half cow, get a half pig, whatever. Source it locally, have it, broken down locally, throw it in your freezer, you're good to go. And keep track of it.
It's amazing too. I've split a quarter cow before, and even a quarter cow lasts so long. I mean, it was 6 months probably, depending on.
And you're getting a better price too.
And way better price. So
much better price.
I like what you said there. Splitting it with like another family and a friend or whatever. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But the other thing people are looking for is just healthier options, right? Yes. They don't want the pesticides, the mystery ingredients. They just want real food that can be, taken care of in their yard.
Yeah. I'm going to admit I've been kind of on ones that try to go like the organic for a while. Plus, I don't know if you guys noticed this or if anyone pays attention. Have you ever noticed the organic milk lasts longer than the non-organic?
Yes.
Which for me, because I don't go through a lot, because it's just me. So I don't go through a lot. So I can buy a quarter thing of milk because I don't do a lot of stuff with milk. I don't eat a lot of cereal. Can actually last. I tend to use it up for the due date. When I bought the other stuff, it's like I feel like I'm constantly throwing it out, which means what? I'm basically pouring money down the drain.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing, like you mentioned, with the girls going out with the garden boxes, picking vegetables. Kids love collecting eggs, picking vegetables. It's can be like not only a learning but an activity that kids can kind of enjoy.
Yeah, and it's basically they're screen free, right? We're getting them away from the TVs, tablets, things like that.
Yep.
Another thing too, social media is fueling this homestead, adventures. TikTok has millions of views. People see it and think, well, shit, I could do that. I can raise chickens. How hard is that? It's
hard.
You have them running around your yard, and you're like, oh, gotta feed these things now? What the heck? I thought they were gonna feed me.
I could do the garden boxes and stuff like that, and it's the vegetables. I don't think I'm getting into any type of live animal raising and whatever. So that's just me. But anyway, also it does add property appeal. Like we said, it's kind of a trending thing right now. So when buyers come, they're seeing the garden boxes, they're seeing the chicken coops, fruit trees, things like that. It can definitely add appeal in the buyer's mind. If it's appealing, it actually may not add value, but solidify the value, I guess you can say.
Yeah, and I will tell you, as someone that is selling, if you're selling your house, make sure those garden beds are cleaned up. They're not overgrown. They're not, if you didn't decide, oh, I'm not going to do it this year because we're selling our house. Because then what people see is a lot more work. If they see a beautiful garden, maybe it takes you a little bit of time, but maintain it while you're selling your house.
So basically, you're just saying, like, if you're not going to grow this year because you're selling the house and you don't want to grow the vegetables for another family, just cut them down and just dirt.
Yeah.
Right?
Keep it clean, cleanless.
Yep. Clean canvas, cut the dirt out, keep the weeds out. Yeah, keep them clean. That's a great tip.
Yeah. But one of the things that can really affect homesteaders right now is local zoning. What can and can't you do? This is where it gets interesting because every town is a little bit different.
Yep. It's like, for instance, Burlington, you get the city versus the town. City, more restrictions. I can tell you cannot have chickens coops in the city of Burlington. Pretty certain. Never looked it up, but very few cities will allow chickens.
Yeah.
Some towns even, I don't know if Wheatland, when I lived in Wheatland, they said you could not, but I think they changed that.
Yeah, we have chickens in
Versus like the town of Burlington. This goes for not only, these things with the garden boxes, maybe some different livestock, stuff like that. Also, like what you're allowed to build too.
Right.
There's some differences with cities and towns.
Right. Yeah, and like town of lions, you can have chickens. Can you have goats? Depends on your acreage. Can you have horses? Depends on your acreage.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, outbuildings, accessory structures. They're generally typically that they do allow them, but it's all dependent on how much land you have, right?
Salem Lakes is another one very popular for backyard chickens. Many subdivisions allow gardens and small coops too, which is kind of nice.
Yep. Yeah. Walworth County, tons of rural pockets, great for mini homesteads.
Yep. And then Kenosha, Racine County's growing interest in little micro farms. There's I would say a lot, but you see these basically properties out there, not hundreds of acres, but 5, 10, even 3 acres.
Yeah.
You can create little small like micro farm situations and watch with your zoning too, like with horses and stuff like that you're talking about. But new construction areas often are the ones though that are out rural that still have the HOA rules. So it's important. These are one things when you're buying one we do consultations on, but also that as we're looking at properties with you, we check.
Yeah.
To see.
Yeah, and if you are looking at a property and this is something that interests you, ask your agent. If it's one of us on the team or someone else, ask your agent, say, hey, can you find out if I could have chickens here, right?
Yeah.
You can obviously call, but typically your agent will have a direct line. They know who to call for which area. So have them reach out, have them get you the resources. Yeah. And then, pass that on to you.
And something I mentioned, why it's so important to have the agent check the local zoning. You don't want to buy a house that you want to have chickens and you can't. Like I mentioned, Wheatland, you didn't used to be. I mean, I had a 3-acre property in Wheatland and could have had chickens, never got them, but it was something we talked about. But at the time, we could not. So could we got away with it? Probably. But should we have? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's important you do check those little things.
Yeah. So in 2026, we talk about what buyers are asking for in 2026. We're seeing a shift when buyers are asking, can I have chickens here? Is there room for a greenhouse? Does the yard get good sun for gardening? Can I add a shed? Is composting allowed? Some areas don't allow composting because, it just draws, depending on what you're doing. My neighbor composts just in a small spot. He throws it all, it breaks down. They have composting barrels. So yeah.
Again, pretty shitty. I love that word. Anyway, but one of the other things is so 10 years ago, it's funny how things shift. It was all about granite countertops and more of what the house is structured like, open concepts. You hear all these phrases, right? Now it's kind of funny when you hear what's the soil like here? I don't know.
Right.
Want to see if
dirty.
Dirt as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
But in fairness, if you do know, I've always said to people, Burlington basically sits on a rock quarry.
Right.
Feels like for the most part. So some of the yards, you're going to dig up a lot of rock. It does vary. So
Yeah.
good questions. We don't always know that information. I'll be honest with you. Your sellers don't always know either.
That's so true.
They never dug up their yard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We've had those clients ask, can I have mini goats? Bees. Bees are one of the things that a lot of areas will allow chickens, but they won't allow bees because they need a little more space to be away from everybody.
Right.
Ducks, a full orchard, sheep, mini horses. Had someone ask, can I have mini horses? I don't know. Does it look like you'd have mini horses? You got a neighbor like less than a quarter block down the road. Yeah. So
I do think it's funny that sometimes, like, when you're talking to your buyer in a consultation, what do you like? What do you like? Well, I don't want a big yard unless I can have chickens.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're willing to mow a lot more, apparently. I don't know. It's kind of funny to me.
Or the people say, I want privacy. And then immediately ask if they can put a giant garden in their front yard. Like, how is that privacy?
I don't know.
So so if you're listening and thinking about it, I want to try a homestead. I'm thinking about doing it. Where do I start?
Yep.
That's the question, right? The first thing is check the zoning.
Yep.
That is the biggest thing out there. Make sure you are zoned to allow what you want to do.
Yep.
Start small. Herbs, tomatoes, a few raised beds. Mm-hmm. Then grow into it. Grow into your fruit trees. Consider chickens. Start with 3 or 4 chickens. Don't go with, a dozen chickens and a rooster and all this stuff. But, start small. Really, it is a lot of work. It's a lot more work than you think. Yep. Build a compost system.
Or as I would call it, a poop management system. Sorry, I could go all day on this.
Yeah. Rain barrels. Hey, a lot of people are like, what the hell are rain barrels? You see it, they have these big 55-gallon plastic barrels right at the edge of the corner of their house that the gutter runs into. And then there's a spigot at the bottom that they have a hose hooked up to. Yep. And basically it collects the water from the rains, and then you use that to help water your gardens.
The last thing I'll kind of equate it to last week, we talked a lot about on the Backyard Oasis, planning.
Yeah.
Like, plan your layout. Maybe talk to someone that's done it before. I think layout can be a huge factor because just like a Backyard Oasis, you want it to flow right.
Right.
Want it to be easily accessible and make sure it's something you can do and manage easy as possible, right? I've never heard anyone say, well, I want these things, but I want to also have it be basically a second job and work really hard at it.
That's true.
Right? You want it to be somewhat, so you can still maintain, like you said, those other lifestyles. But again, you don't need 5 acres. A lot of this can be done with even a quarter acre.
Right. Right. But remember, check your zoning. So this trend isn't really slowing down. The half homesteader lifestyle is becoming a real factor in home searches, home values, and how people are using their backyard space a little bit differently than the Oasis.
Mm-hmm. And if you're thinking of buying or selling and you want to get in these types of homes, or you want to know what the town allows, reach out. We are here to help. We'll make the calls. We'll read into the town ordinances.
Yep.
We know a lot of times it's also just based on zoning. What's A1 versus A2 for agricultural. We can help you with those differences.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Remember, support local, support your neighbor, and we'll see you next week, guys. Have a great one. Bye.